All right, everyone. Thank you for joining. Did you know the ESCO HVAC Show? So I'm hanging out with Jim Fultz. Jim, how's it going, man?
Hey, it's going great. Great to be here.
So we may be having some video issues. If there's a little bit of lag, that is definitely on our side. We're here just outside of Indianapolis, Indiana. We've had tons and tons of rain over the last few days. So I think our internet is a little bit on the shaky side. So if we lose you, hang on. We'll be right back. Hey, Todd, what's going on, man? All right, so Jim and I have been hanging out today doing some video shoot here in Indianapolis. We were over at the local Johnstone Supply, spending some time diving into controls and doing some just evaluations of the way our industry is changing and trying to make sure that we're staying up to date with, technology. And
Yeah.
I mean, technology is kind of going crazy, wouldn't you say, Jim?
It is. It is. We are seeing more technology in HVAC than what I have dreamed that we would see. An old mentor of mine
Yeah.
back in Provo County, Ohio here,
Uh-huh.
he used to say the industry was occupied by bums and drunks because nobody else would crawl in attics and crawl
At that
spaces and do
time.
any
Sure,
work.
yeah. Play with
But-
coal and
Oh yeah, but today's industry is a lot more complex, a lot more complicated to be able to understand everything that's going in. We're into phone apps, we're into Bluetooth, NFC, all sorts of technologies today that make the job a lot easier, but it takes a little bit more smarts to get through it than what it
does.
did. And that's kind of a fun challenge because we have all these people like me that have ADHD that
Yeah.
can't sit still in a chair
Yeah.
very long, and we've got to be doing something with our hands
Yeah.
all the time.
Oh, y'all should have seen it. So we were having computer problems a while ago. It was like two mice bouncing inside of like one of those little mice circles.
We could generate enough power for your
Yeah.
whole house for a day. I'm sure.
I
Just
know.
within that 5 minutes.
We're gonna hop on that
Yeah.
ECM exercise bike here in just a little bit. We're gonna power this sucker up.
Yeah. So the bottom line is, yeah, our personality is we got to do things with our hands,
Yeah.
but now it's fun stuff. We actually get to do things with technology, apps and meters and everything that really take us to the next level and also bring about an industry that's not always had a good rap for its name and say, hey, this is an industry that's worthwhile getting in. It's a good paying industry and it's something that not everybody can do.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we start talking about these new technologies and innovations, it's always important to understand where we came from, to understand why we're making changes. And so that's really one of the reasons we wanted to have this particular one. I know when I first put that out, I actually had a couple of people go, are you going to talk about contactors for an hour? Really? And I'm like, well, we're going to talk about our industry and we're going to talk about changes and especially things that change to contactors along the way, right?
Yeah.
All right, so let's hop into this and let's do a little deep dive. And so really what we're doing is we're making our way over to, we're going to get to this Sure Switch. So if you don't know what a Sure Switch is, you will by the end of this conversation, because it really is an important part going forward. So we want to see this type of circuitry in the majority of our control boards and outdoor units.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
I keep talking about, the days of contactors are pretty well gone. Some of our manufacturers are almost away from them in their new product lines. And why do we do that? Well, we try to make advancements so that the technology works better, right? So we're going to...
And to give you a scenario with that, and unfortunately, we can't see all of you here right now, but if you could, raise your hand if you've been able to see what it would have looked like in a car engine 30 years ago when... your electronics, there wasn't electronics, when your spark was points, a condenser and a spark. You just simply had points, and those points was all that you had for the spark of that engine. And engines in cars have dramatically changed from just that condenser with those contact points in it that gave you all sorts of grief. And as that simple device got changed into something larger underneath a hood, we're also going to see in and outdoor condenser.
Same kind of things.
The same type of revolution. We're heading there, and we are already there in a lot of product that's out there on the market already.
When we think about like those contact points, right? On the points of a distributor, they had required maintenance. It wasn't just something you put in and was there for life. A contact point is really, it's only 100% good one time.
Yep.
The very first time that it closes. And after that, it's in a state of perpetual wear, right? So even in vehicles, when we had points in our vehicles, we would actually have to clean, set the gap on those, sometimes even replace them because they were so bad.
Yeah.
So that's gone away.
It has.
Right?
We went completely to electronic ignition.
Yeah.
And for the younger part of our audience today, that's all you've ever seen or known. That's all that's been out there in the last 20, 30 years is that electronic ignition. So we're going to dive clear back before the beginning of time. Not quite, but we're pretty early here in the history.
In the history of our industry.
Of our industry.
Yeah. Absolutely. All right. So let's talk about this a little bit, because when we start thinking about a majority of the equipment that's in the industry right now, the majority of our outdoor units are still contactor driven.
They are. Yeah.
Right. And so we are kind of like dinosaurs in comparison to other industries.
Absolutely. We've been slow to make that transition and change into the electronic world, but we're there. We're at the edge of that right now, and it's pretty steep what we're going to be seeing in the next generation of equipment, especially with things like A2L and the mitigation things that need to be added to equipment to cover that.
Sure.
That's just another level of electronics that we're going to see within the industry.
Yeah, because we think about like a traditional contactors, especially as they start getting some wear, that's a pretty significant point of ignition sources and heat. So things to be looking at and thinking about going forward. So why don't you run with this? You tell me when we can go through slides. This is a class you put together, and I'm just going to be kind of joining in for the fun of it, like everybody else. And by the way, everyone, let us know where you're joining from. We always love to know how large our community is growing, and we really value you being here.
Yeah, no, shout out. That sounds great. So yeah, the first slide we have up here is just simply going back in history in the 1950s when air conditioning had R12.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Clear back before 22 even, and 22 was starting to come around for residential air conditioners.
Yep.
The contactors were really, they were built like Sherman tanks. They were overbuilt. They were super heavy duty. They lasted as long as the equipment lasted.
Yeah, that's true.
And were a great heavy piece. Well, one of the things that we run into with that is the fact that not we, but manufacturers are looking at that saying, hey, we need to cut our costs. We need to drop how much this condensing unit costs us to manufacture. They went to the contactor manufacturer and said, is there a way you can make a less expensive model for us?
Yeah, it makes sense.
And so they complied, and we've graduated to a less expensive and less through the years from that. Part of that cheapening of, and I hate to use that word, is just less expensive sounds better.
There you go.
And it's a contactor that would wear out before the end of the equipment life. The points were not made as good. The coil to hold the contacts down was weakened. It wasn't as strong of a coil.
Thinner copper, so it didn't have quite the feel to it. Yeah. Yep.
So and those two things are already leading to some of the issues that would still occur today. The coil itself not being able to hold the contacts down well enough that if you have enough of a voltage drop, you can actually get chattering. You can actually get those contacts opening and closing really
quick. Heard it quite a few times out in the industry. Yeah.
And that can occur if your gauge of wire is too small, or if you have an extremely long run line set from the condenser to the indoor unit, and you're running that long.
We're having voltage drop or current drop across our long conductor. Yeah.
Correct. Okay. So with that, you can get chattering, and that coil is not made to withstand that. The other part of that is the contacts are not made as heavy as they used to, so they can pit and wear faster than what the original ones were made.
Right.
So we've got a shortening of lifespan of a contactor. And we went from, also, it seems like from what I've seen within the last probably 10, 15 years, we've went from a true 2-pole contactor to a 1.5-pole contactor, we call it.
A lot of those I've seen it. Yeah.
So it used to be there was for a while you had some manufacturers still using 2 separate contact points where you had 4 points connecting. Now, as shown in the slide here, right now you have only one set of points on one side and a shunt or jumper on the other side. And that works well. It's cheapening or making that contactor less expensive to be able to go
manufacture,
go in the unit.
Right.
And those contact points also are still a set that can wear out, and you can have all sorts of issues with that.
Yeah, absolutely. If we think back, think back to the 1950s, 60s, 70s, many things we built very heavy duty, right? So they had a long life expectancy. And so we started looking at things as, all right, it's built well, it's going to last a long time. Now we start moving forward, things are actually having a faster wear out period. A contactor has become more of absolutely a serviced item.
Correct.
Right. But there's not a lot of servicing we do to most of them that we have in residential systems. So they're more of a replacement. But sometimes that mentality is still out there as if it's still working, it's still good. Right.
Yeah. Well, not right. That's part of one of the things that we want to talk about today in these contact points, and the fact that, it's still pulling down, but are you checking anything else on that contactor when you're out doing that service call? Is there any types of checks that you're going through? And some of those checks that you can go through is just simply, while the unit's running, to get your voltmeter on AC volts and go across those closed contact points from one side to the other. And you know what you would get?
Hopefully nothing.
Hopefully zero.
Yeah.
What happens if you get something?
Well, then we're creating a load on something. We have a change in resistance. We're actually creating a load somewhere.
Correct.
Yeah.
And if you have a way to read temperature and you stick that right there on those contact points, you have a little bit of a resistance heater there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you are not getting that full voltage through those contact points, and you're heating them up and dropping that voltage across that set of contact points.
Yeah.
And what's that going to do? That's going to drop your voltage in your compressor. Some of that it can handle, but there's a state which we call brownout, which typically, if we're below 184 volts on a system, we are in a condition where we are heating up the windings in the motors.
Right, not generating as much torque. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. And that extra heat in the compressor and the condenser fan motor is going to eventually melt the wirings and the glue that's holding that together, causing those windings to short out.
Sure. Yeah.
And so you're shortening the lifespan of both the compressor and the condenser fan motor when your contact points are not fully sending that 100% voltage that's receiving on through to the other side.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's a check whenever you're heading into the cooling season.
Yeah. We're in heating right now, so we understand.
I apologize. I'm here with Clifton in his garage, and it's 38 degrees outside in April.
Yeah.
I mean, who would have thought?
Not used to this in California.
I brought short sleeve shirt here today because I was like, we're in spring,
right?
And no, we're not. As you head into the cooling season and you're starting those tune-ups, another thing that you can do in helping make sure and ensure that the system is functioning properly is check across the contacts, see if you have any voltage drop across the contacts, and with measuring that may be an indicator,
indicator
that it's time to replace that contactor for the homeowner.
Indeed. All right, so let's dive into a little bit of the identification of contactors. We got this slide up. We might as well grab this while we're right here.
You bet. So we call these contactors by however many sets of points or contacts that close and the points that are coming into it, or the connections coming into it. 1 point pole contactors, there's not a lot of those out there. I don't think we really see much of that in the residential market. What we're familiar with today is the 1.5 pole contactor. It has the one set of contact points on one side and then that shunt or jumper on the other side. And that's all we need, because when we're dealing with a 220 circuit, we only need to break one side of that for motors not to function and operate.
Yeah, absolutely.
What will happen is the side that is the shunt or jumper will get the 120 going into it, just like the other side. We have the two 120 legs that are 240 if we measure across them. The one that's going into the shunt or jumper, when the contacts are open, will continue through the whole unit all the way back to that
backside of the contactor.
Backside of that contactor. It feeds back through those motors. So again, one of the reasons why you pull a disconnect whenever you're working on today's condensers is because even though the unit isn't running, we still have 120 going all the way through all of the circuits inside that condenser. Again, why we pull the disconnect when we're washing out the coils. We don't want that 110 in those motors live while we're spraying water all over it. So
absolutely,
with a single pole, or excuse me, a one and a half pole,
right,
contactor, always pull that disconnect whenever you're in there and working on the unit or spraying it out, cleaning the coils. The 2-pole contactor, still a good idea to pull the
de-energize.
No matter what you're doing, if you're spraying water on it.
Right.
But with a 2-pole contactor, you're breaking both of those 110 legs. So from that point on into the motors,
all the power.
There is no power in either one of those motors with a full 2-pole contactor in it.
Yeah.
And that's the nicest way to go as far as de-energizing everything internal. Does it have to be? No, 1.5 works great for
operating.
But
you're right. That's one thing we haven't taught enough on the service side. When we're looking at a 1.5 pole contactor, we're absolutely still energized at 120 volts through our entire circuit.
Absolutely.
Back to our contactor. And we are touching a grounded component, right?
Yeah.
So if we have any skins and wire anywhere, especially if we have an operating condition, we're out there looking for issues with a piece of equipment, and we find a scraped wire and we're touching a cabinet, we're actually immediately subjected to 120 volt load.
We are going to be the ground path. Yeah.
And typically on a 30 or 40 amp circuit. So there's a lot of potential current on that piece of equipment. So just being very aware, if you didn't already know.
It tickles.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be pretty good. So be very careful with a 1.5 pole contactor if we're doing any work on that piece of equipment to make sure that we're removing power from that.
Absolutely. And here's a plug for A2L. Rabbit trail if you could ever get one.
Yeah.
Right now, we work in an industry that we respect electricity. We turn it off when we're working on units.
Yes.
We respect gas. We turn off the gas shut off when we're working on a gas furnace. And whenever we're working on A2Ls here in the future, we respect A2Ls. We're not going to have an open flame around us or anywhere near us when we're dealing with A2Ls. It's just another item on our list to respect. We already respect very dangerous components in the industry. This is nothing more. A2L is nothing more than another to add to that list that we want to respect.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's part of what we do. It's getting ready to become part of what we do.
Absolutely.
If we're not already working with them.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and catch one of the biggest things that we are dealing with within contactors, and that is this electrical arc.
You're right.
And this arc is one of the biggest reasons why contacts go out. And we'll get it a little more deeper. And I think we got a slide that actually shows the sine wave and more
talking
of
about lag and
the scientific side of things.
Okay.
But what we have is when those contact points open, as in this picture, if there is a load and that 120 volts is present going through that circuit, we actually get an electrical arc. Now, electrical arc, as in the picture, is something that you would see a little bit more magnified if you decided to weld two pieces of metal together.
Yeah, same principle.
You're arcing that welding rod and keeping it a little bit of distance away from the metal that you're wanting to put together to heat up that metal and bring it together. And so this right here is the essence, the beginning of a weld or a welding process.
Every time that opens and closes, we're going to have that potential, especially for the closing. Yeah.
And so what we're doing with that is that arc is warming up the contact points. Absolutely. And warming them up will alter their physical composition, and we get what we call pitting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is these little divots where that warm from that arc, that heat, actually melted part of that contact point every time it opened or closed.
Yeah.
So that is where the pitting comes from, is this electrical arc. Arcing can also occur a lot faster in what we just talked about earlier. If we have that voltage coil dropped, where we have a long low voltage wire going to the contactor, we don't have enough power to hold those contacts together
into place strongly.
into place. And when that contactor is chattering, when it's opening and closing really rapidly, we're just creating sparks,
Constantly annealing that surface.
And we're eventually, one of two things is going to happen. Either there's enough warm metal that it's going to weld it closed, or it's going to have enough pits and rough surfaces that there's not enough surface to actually make contact with both sides to carry that voltage through. And then we pull together on the contacts, but the voltage don't go through because there's not enough surface there.
Yeah, because if we look at like those surface contacts, we start out with a very significant surface, right? Knowing that over time it is going to wear down. So if we start out with, just say it's a 10 gauge wire, we're flowing current through a 10 gauge wire into contact points. Well, we really only need a surface area the size of that 10 gauge wire if there was never any wear.
Correct.
All right. So we'll start out with the surface that might be 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 times larger than that gauge of the wiring that would have been passing through those points, but we continually to constantly create less and less of a surface over time.
Yeah.
And we just don't put that into our service procedures. I absolutely did. That was one of my things, is I'd walk into a grocery refrigeration rack. The first thing I do, open all the doors, grab my IR, and I start looking for hot spots. And
you bet.
You know, we can do the exact same thing in the residential industry if we look at it from that perspective, to realize that it absolutely is a wear item. A contactor doesn't go bad when it stops opening or it burns up. We have the opportunity to catch that way before then, if we're paying attention to those two things, voltage drop and temperature crossed it because of voltage drop. Okay. All right.
Let's keep on going.
Let's keep on rolling. If anyone has any questions, you want to hop in here, we'd love to hear from you. I mean, this is a concept that we probably all know a little bit about, but we don't always bring to the front. But now we're going to, especially as we start talking about, you know, alternative refrigerants with higher flammability than we have in the past. We're going to have a lot of conversations about safety going forward. And this is one that is going to need some addressing.
Yeah. So great picture that you got here for us.
Yeah, I added that one in. It's one of them that I had grabbed. I tried blowing it up at one point to show what it actually looks like after they've been slammed a few times.
Oh yeah.
Right.
You've totally taken that surface and you've created a very rough, and those would have started out just as smooth as can be on each side. And that arcing has over time literally deteriorated both sides of that.
Yeah. And look what it did just to the surface of the metals. I mean, look at the discoloration because of heat, right? So we know that anytime we're losing current, we're converting to heat. And that's exactly what we've seen on those.
Yep.
Okay.
All right. So here's your two options. When you've got those points to the condition that either you can't make electric go through them, then you don't have a condenser that's coming on at all. Or the other case is those points are welded closed, the indoor fan shuts off, and the condenser's still running because those points are welded closed in that compressor. And condenser fans running, the evaporator fans quit. And you end up with an ice cube inside to deal with because it's continued to run until somebody comes out and pulls disconnect and gets that condenser off. And at that point, then you can start melting the ice on the condenser and trying to warm it up.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, not a lot to add to this. I think this is just basic fundamentals of what can happen with that contactor. This slide here, though, it's a little more fun to talk about because there's brownouts that can occur. There's insects, and we haven't talked about insects yet.
Not very much.
But we have talked about the voltage drop.
Yeah.
And so insects is another thing that is huge in some areas and some areas not. And you can live in an area where you're in a subdivision and there's one house that every year you're going back and replacing the contactor because for some reason all of the ants have decided that that's house
a good home.
Like. Yeah.
They like whatever's in this ground and this wood.
Evidently, the homeowner's feeding them out back or something, and you have a nice large population of ants.
Yeah,
and they love those contact points. Now, there's another feature of that we haven't talked about of what is attracting those insects.
That's interesting. Yeah.
To those contact points, and that is the heat itself. So whenever you're arcing and sparking on those contact points, you're warming that area up, and those insects are like, hey, let's get in here. Here's
that looks like a comfy home.
Oh yeah, it's a nice warm spot.
Make this a nest. Yeah, I like this.
Yeah, and they just crawl right between the two contact points and
off they roll.
That's it. Well, sometimes they're not. There's many a story of and some of you out here watching right now could probably, if you would stop and take a picture, from some point in time in your career, you would have a picture of the points coming out of the top of an earwig and its little tail coming out of the bottom, right between the contact points.
Absolutely.
That's something that they get in between there, and they're done.
Yeah.
And earwigs and ants, those are the two favorite things that like those points.
Man, and I think about so many times where we found mice in contactors and snakes in contactors down in the Florida, particularly. They get those little, they get little lizards.
Oh, it's a warm spot when those things are.
Warm spot when it's cold outside.
Well, and if they're arcing, you got some nice heat there.
Yep. See, absolutely, Daniel. Seen many of them out there. So it makes sense that maybe we've been generating excess heat that we've been overlooking every other time that we've been there servicing that piece of equipment.
Absolutely. And if we'd have stopped and taken the time to measure the voltage across and seen that voltage drop, it's like, oh, there's some heat here. We need to get this out before the next step of the insect showing up.
Could have caught it before it actually smoked somebody.
We could have saved an ant's life.
We could think about you want to save a critter's life.
There you go.
Start measuring voltage and temperature across the contactor.
And they will say thank you.
Moral of the story.
Yeah.
And see, dude, and they thought that we wouldn't be able to talk an hour on contactors. There's an hour right there just telling stories of smoking critters.
We're not even half done.
No, how about that? So, by the way, anybody has any good photos of smoked ants and critters, see back at escogroup.org.
Yeah, and so here's our lead into our sure switch contactor.
All right.
You went a little too fast.
Did I go too far?
Yeah, we got a picture right here on this one.
It's already in the okay.
Yeah, this is a cutaway of a sealed contact that we have in our sure switch, and sealed by meaning that you can see the sides of this blue box. You can't hardly see the back of it, but it's blue, and there's a blue cover that's 100% sealed. So the contacts inside of a sure switch have no access to outside. Period. They are 100% sealed. So they're with the sure switch. There is no way to get in. For any ants or earwigs to lose their life in one of these.
Environmentally sealed, and
it is,
which
100%.
Would make it intrinsically safe, actually.
It is, and it's kind of interesting because there are different types of covers, but this is the only one that is 100% sealed, and as well as the fact that in this picture you can actually see a little white square right beside the coil, and that white square is what we call the latching mechanism, and that latching mechanism is one that it is either open or closed. This relay does not chatter. Once it gets a signal of voltage, it knows to completely close, be on, and it latches on. And once the voltage signal's gone, it goes the other way and latches open. So there is no way during this that this relay can chatter at all. So we've totally eliminated any type of chattering within this from the brownouts or voltage drop. It's not physically possible for the sure switch to chatter.
So you're mechanically forcing it in both directions.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah, I can see that. Okay. All right. So we're getting there. We're leading into solutions here. Okay.
Yep. Ready for the next one.
Go. Okay. Let me get over here.
There you go.
Oh.
So what?
There we go.
Okay. Yeah. was gonna say we can hold this up in front of this camera.
Yeah. Let me see if I can get the other camera fired up to your. We'll try it. It might be backwards. We were having some problems earlier with running these cameras, and what we found was that the one of them was upside down. And we're using a separate PC. My other one's in getting a little bit of work done to it, so I'm using the older one, and it wasn't being as friendly.
So the third alternating current sine wave, where we go 100 volts positive, 120 volts negative, and we're also dealing with somewhere around 35 amps positive negative up and across this sine wave. Positive negative 60 times a second here in the US with our 60 hertz. And every time it's going positive negative and negative, it's actually crossing a point where there's zero voltage.
Okay.
And so 0 amps.
All right, we're still here. Don't worry. Hang on. Yeah. Don't leave yet.
Yeah.
All right, you keep talking and I'll bring up the presentation.
we got different kind of critters around here that are not being very friendly. No, it's not.
Electrical vermin here.
We got the camera, so let's go ahead and show this contact point camera here, and you can actually see these contact points right there. And I can actually reach in here and turn that, flip that, so that those contact points are closed. That's the latching I was talking about, and push it back over and open it up. Now, what you can't see in this, and what we will be able to see in this in the slide as soon as Clifton brings our slide here back up, is in the bottom left corner here, you can see underneath these contact points that I was showing you in here, through to the bottom, there's a little black bead.
Oh, yeah.
That's an electric eye.
What?
It is actually sensing light. And so what we
through the points?
Well, so whenever the points open up, the first time that there's power applied to this, they open up. It will sense if there's light. It'll sense if there's an arc.
Yeah.
And it will adjust itself on that 60 hertz sine wave so that the next time it opens up, it's closer to the no arc zone.
Oh, wow.
And it will continue. Sometimes it takes 4 or 5 times to adjust itself to the 5th, 6th time that it opens up.
Right.
It's opening up in that spot of the cycle right where it's crossing the 0. So what's that doing to the points?
Yes, it's extending them. It's their life expectancy.
It's extending them 5 times longer than what your standard contactor is.
Okay.
In the lower right side of the slide, you can see the sure switch contact points after 1 million cycles. And
really?
And they simply do not have that pitting, that arcing. It's not been occurring because of the fact that we're constantly monitoring and making sure that we are opening those contact points when there is no spark.
All right. And so the one directly above it that has the 300,000 cycles, that's a traditional contactor after 300 cycles.
Absolutely.
Versus a sure switch after 1 million.
Yep. Yeah. And then to the right or the left there of the 300,000 cycles is new points on a standard contactor as well. So you can see they should be nice and smooth and shiny.
Yeah.
And if you're opening up when you got spark and arc, you're eventually pitting those points. And that's one of the reasons why contactors do not last the lifetime of the equipment anymore.
So we're still using a mechanical break of our circuit, but now we're using technology.
Absolutely. Yeah.
To modify the potential for spark of that interaction.
You could have stopped as modifying the potential.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing. We're stopping that potential from that amperage from being there whenever we're opening those contacts. And that's making that so we now have we basically have a 1950s contactor available now back in 2024 here.
Right. With the advent of technologies.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. And we're doing it with a 1.5 pole contactor. We have the shunt in there just like
Yeah.
the rest of the manufacturers. It's just the set of contact points that are in there are fully being monitored.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, that really steps up the game.
It does.
I mean, it eliminates potential for heat, potential for our arcing and wear, potential for insects and variety of contaminants. Okay, so it's came a long way.
It has.
It has really come a long way.
Yeah, we're now progressing into the 21st century here with a contactor that will monitor all that, and so we've already talked about the monitoring of brownouts a little bit. We've talked about ants. Let's keep on going here on the slides and catch our next round of things here. And that is how sealed contacts are. And most contacts, and you can see from this picture, if they're wide open on the top, you got insects in them,
right?
Or potential for insects in them.
Yeah.
Most manufacturers, when they say they have sealed contacts, it's a dust cover.
Right. It's just covering the contacts.
It's covering the top.
Okay.
And even some of the new contactors that are coming out that are sealed, they're sealed on the top. There's still access in the side and bottom for insects and things to get in.
Right.
The idea of the sealed is so that the surface of them, from the front of them, they don't have direct access on the top.
Reduce mechanical spark.
Correct.
Not eradicated, just
correct.
Potentially reduced.
So while we're here, let's talk a little bit again about A2L and where we're at with A2L. And currently with A2L refrigerants, there's talk of different components being A2L compliant.
Yeah.
At this point, the A2L legislation is for system compliance.
It's not for individual
it's
items.
It's not for specific parts.
Yeah, exactly.
So when we talk about an A2L compliant system, we're talking about a system that has some type of a sensor on the inside where the potential for the hazard for the leak
concentration potential
is in by that evaporator coil or indoor coil if it's a heat pump. And that sensor is going to shut off the condenser and it's going to turn on the fan blower.
Get things recirculated a little bit, mitigate it.
And mix up that refrigerant with fresh air so that the parts per million is down to the point that it's fully mitigated.
Yes.
Now, there's also talk with that we may end up having to pump the system down, push all the refrigerant into the condenser.
Into systems with larger refrigerant charges. Absolutely.
So we no longer can continue to leak refrigerant on the inside for part of that mitigation. As far as components themselves, I don't know of any legislation yet. And if somebody does out there right now,
please let us know. Jason and I have really been struggling with that. Because there's not much when it comes to that. I've seen some manufacturers that are changing some products, and I think that is just their own decisions to change some of their products. It's not been regulated. Is there potential for regulation for that going forward? Who knows? There's a lot of crazy things in our industry right now.
They let the two of us in. So hey.
That's right. How did they do that?
I don't know.
Do they know what they did, really? Don't tell everybody.
So hey,
good question there, Ty.
Yeah. Hey, Ty. Good to see you. Three-phase. We are continuing to work on a three-phase version of SureSwitch where we would actually have 3 sealed relays
separate ones in
that are in one control. That has been something that's been a challenge from the fact that we want to make sure that it's the size that will fit where the old 3-phase contactor is and be able to do everything that it does plus maybe even do more. And so we're coming down actually on the home stretch of that. Things are coming together on that. And
very cool.
And I say coming down the home stretch. What's that mean?
What does that mean? Well, getting closer.
Getting closer. Maybe another year, maybe less, hopefully less. But we're working on it. We're getting closer to a 3-phase and it'll be sweet when it shows up to be able to do the same with that. With what we have right now, it is the only true sealed set of contacts. And so as far as being safe around A2Ls, it would be the safest product out there. Is it A2L compliant? I don't know that. There's no such thing as individual components being A2L compliant at this point. So if you're looking for the safety, this will give you the safety. If you're looking for something that says it's compliant, I don't know that you're going to find anything out there as individual parts that fulfill that.
Yeah. There's a lot of talk about that with the equipment, with the individual components within a system. And I look at that and I go, man, and I understand there's some initial cost to that, going from a plain Jane 1.5 pole into something that is actually pretty well intrinsically safe. But I question, well, why didn't all the manufacturers just go with that was using a contactor? I mean, it completely eliminates that potential.
Yeah, and we have it right here.
Yeah,
this is it. This is that sealed set of points that there is no spark or any potential for anything to ignite. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Absolutely.
Right. Man, good stuff out there. Really good stuff.
It's great.
Yeah.
So just a little bit about the Sure Switch and Clifton got my old slide deck here. I apologize. We are Copeland.
That's right.
We want to talk
that
we are fully Copeland.
This is me.
But it's all good. We can just introduce Copeland on this slide.
There you go.
Copeland bought a private equity that has named our division Copeland, bought Emerson last spring, a year ago. And we are now Copeland. And so you will see as time goes on that Emerson name coming off all the products and replaced by Copeland. Depending on where you're at, there could be some distributors out there that still have stock with Emerson on it. So you may still see that name on stock that's coming through the different
same product
supply channels. That's all we're doing is that different sticker. It's no different than General Motors truck assembly in Moraine, Dayton. They look at those trucks coming down the assembly line and they say, this tag says GMC, and they pull a GMC grill and put it on the front of the truck, and the next one says Chevy, and they pull the Chevy grill and put it on the front of the truck. It's all the same stuff. It's just a couple different components. So this control will continue to be the same as far as the things that it can do, and we've already talked about the eliminating the bugs, the optical sensor detect and mitigating that arc through monitoring that. We have not talked much about the short cycle or
no. I seen that on there.
The random startup timer, and so that is something that's built in on one here, and I got a live one here.
Yep. Oh, let me unplug that.
No, I'm
okay. Sure. Don't touch the black wire, Jim. Don't touch it.
Oh, yeah. And for anybody coming on the Clifton Show, prepared to get tickled. The electricity is really live around
everywhere.
Yeah. So within this contactor here, there are 2 dip switches, and those dip switches they read delay and then brown. So the time delay can be turned off on this, as well as the brownout protection can be turned off. Now, why would we?
I would say, why would you want to turn?
Why would we want to turn off that short cycle delay? Well. That leads us. Thank you for that question.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did I ask it first? I'm sorry.
I think so.
There are contact points on this. Contact points. There are 1/4-inch spades on this to connect the coil wires. And there's 2 that are open, and those 2 that are open are the 24-volt wires that are open. And that is your normal voltage for your coil on your applications with your residential air conditioning. However, there's a 3rd one that's right here that's covered. And this little cap, you can just simply pull this little cap off, and you have a 3rd spade terminal. You can take it and put it over here on the side so that you only have 2, and you can keep it on there. But these spade terminals, you can hook 120 volt up to it, or you can hook 240 volt up to it. So this we call a multi-coil contactor. So what that does is that now takes this into making it something that is for refrigeration as well.
Absolutely. That's what I just started thinking about, man.
Yeah. So you got a piece of equipment. you got an ice maker that you want to put this in. Well, the ice maker has its own control board that is telling the compressor when to come on and go off to make all of the ice and the cycles of that.
Yep.
You don't want an extra timer in here.
No,
to keep
you want to
that
work
compressor.
on the factory timing. Yeah.
Factory timing only is what you want. So being able to turn off the short cycle delay allows this contactor to be able to come on immediately in refrigeration applications where the board is determining how long those cycles are on and off rather than the contactor itself. The brownout delay, normally we would recommend leaving that on. That's something that, again, if there is some type of a major brownout issue and you're wanting to be able to continue to cool and you're wanting to monitor the compressor and everything yourself,
for sure.
You can do that. But short cycle, you can kill that. There is one other time delay cycle that also would be a part of this delay that you would turn off. And that is whenever power is completely removed from the control. And we call that a blackout where you've removed power. These are set up where they randomly start anywhere from 1 to 90 seconds after there's a blackout. So if you was to install 10 of these in an apartment complex,
they're not all slamming on at the same time,
and your power goes out.
Absolutely.
You can have a step startup again with all 10 units of that apartment complex.
Multifamily. Hey, where's the bell? Anyone out there in multifamily that gets a main breaker that trips every time you have a power outage? Here's your answer.
Right here's the key. You got it.
Like that.
Yeah, this will take care of that. So,
that's really cool.
And I think that takes care. There is a LED in here that you can use to be able to monitor things. It will show you when you're in standby, you have a slow mode when of a green flash, and when it's on, it's solid. And then the final one, if you're in delay, it's going to be flashing super rapidly to be able to show that you're in delay.
Okay.
There's also a test button on here. So after you've went and put on your being paged there, where's your
hey Tony, which one? I got a whole stack of them in here.
You going somewhere?
Oh
no,
you keep going.
There we go. All right, so we've lost Clifton for a while as he submerges here to see if he can find the hat of choice. And to finalize the test button, what it's doing here is it is allowing you to be able to push that after everything's wired and you've powered up the condenser without having to go back into the house and turn the air conditioner on. And we've lost Clifton. Where is Clifton? Oh, we got Waldo. Look at that. Where's Waldo? Hey, Waldo. There you go, Tony.
There you go, Tony.
Just for you.
That's just for you, my friend.
Thank you very much. You just made our show the goofiest show on earth. Wow.
Hey, that's the goal, isn't it? Go big or go home. I mean,
well, I may do the latter.
Home, though.
Yeah. It may be me. Yeah. I may be going home.
You might be getting a call after this show. All right. There is a limit. There is a limit.
There we go. So I think we've talked about all of these different features on here. But there is one thing that I do want to mention about the contactor that we haven't mentioned that is on any of these. This is just kind of repeating a little bit of what we went through already. Yeah. And that is the fact that the SureSwitch is the only contactor out there with a 5-year warranty on it.
What?
Yeah.
5 years.
5 years. And we don't get them back either. That's the crazy part.
Lot.
It is. Yeah. We can offer that because we don't need it.
Right.
And the benefit of that is there's two things you can do as a contracting company.
Mm-hmm.
You can write on your invoice 5-year warranty on the contactor. What that does is your homeowner, if there's an issue 3 or 4 years down the road, they're going to be like, hey, I got this part that's got a 5-year warranty. Right. I'm calling the same company out.
Yeah.
So it's helping attach you to that
absolutely
that customer.
Yeah.
The other thing that I've seen happen with this is homeowners like good, better, best. And so when you're going
There's your option right there.
When you're going to replace the contactor, allow your technicians to offer the homeowner, here's your standard contactor, Here's the best.
Right.
Which one do you want?
Yeah, absolutely.
This is what you're getting with the standard.
90-day warranty on this one, 5-year on this one.
You got it. And you can also turn around and go and take that upsell, and if you want to, you can spiff your technicians on it so that you know that they're offering both and getting that upsell for more for you as well as more a better contactor for the homeowner. So
yeah, absolutely.
brownout voltage.
Yeah. Question just came in from Greg. I think what he may be asking is there a voltage limit that it initiates a brownout?
No, exactly what he's asking. Yes.
Okay.
And your answer is this: you get below 184 volts, and on the 220 volt side, that's what it's monitoring. 180 volt will trigger the brownout. Okay. And then once you go above 194 volts, it will trigger it back on. So 184 off, 194 plus back on.
Love it.
A built-in delay is great for OEM. There's
some of our early scrolls in particular. If anybody remembers some of those early scrolls before we put check valves in them, that on a quick start, shut off, you'd actually hear a little trying to run backwards before it came on. And it was that's a hard start, current inrush.
Yeah. So blip of power.
Yeah.
If it's enough of a blip of power, it is going, and it actually opens the contact points from that latching. It's actually having to energize and pull that latch off of there so that it's open. If you got enough to do that, you have enough to trigger the short cycle delay.
Oh, sure, absolutely.
So with the short cycle delay, there you go. You're not going to run backwards. You're now going to run on that short cycle delay, which is on here. You got it right on the slide.
Yeah.
3 minutes for the factory set, and it actually shows here. We're showing 180 volts. Right. 184 is where we're close to set, but within that ball pack, and it has to be greater than 4 seconds to be able to trigger that. So 3 minute delay, and then you're going to start back up. So that blip of power will not allow that scroll to decide to run backwards.
Right. Put a little pressure on the high side. Yep. Okay. Yeah. Fantastic. Any other questions while you're out there? I see striking a lot of people's curiosity. I mean, it's what we're here for. We're here to talk about things. We're talking about, innovations and higher levels of safety in things that we work on. But I mean, just think about the longevity of it alone. I mean,
yeah.
If you can offer 5 years warranty on something, it's tested and it's built well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And so here you have it, folks. We are heading towards this 1 hour point, and all we've talked about is contactors.
I know.
Yeah. So again, these are just repeats here of what we've talked about. This new contactor, coil voltages. We can run different voltages. So if you're in refrigeration and you're carrying different contactors on your truck, you can carry one that's going to cover everything. And again, the actual top, there's a sticker that shows where your switch is, and then your shunt in the middle. So you can see that. And also on the face of it, we get here.
Yeah.
In the plastic itself, you can see it's actually labeled the line in over here. Yeah. I'm going backwards here. The line in on this side and the compressor side on this side. So we're labeled the one side, the T2, T1, and the L1, L2. And also in installing this, when you install it, there are 4 screws around the edge. We leave 3 of them open and up, and only screw 1 down from the factory. So when you're going to install this, you don't have to install all 3 screws. You can loosen all 4 screws. You only loosen 1. And then this base comes off, and it's separate. And then you can mount this base on where it's going and on the structure, and then tighten all 4 down. And an easy way to know, once you've separated it, it's like, which end is the end where the
where your labeling is now. Yeah.
It's the same end with the raised writing on it. So as long as you're raised, where your raised writing is, that's where your wires are going to go in, and your label's going to go there as well. So it's all on the same end. One of the questions we have is, you put them all on one end. Yeah, that was the way that it was originally designed. And most of the time you can find either your line in voltage wires are extra that you can take them around to the far side, or the wires inside the condenser are enough that you can bring them around. One way or the other, you can usually get this to work to make that happen and have all those wires on one side.
Love it. Love it. You know what I just realized?
Yes, sir.
How did I go this entire show with this camera flipped horizontally? You're Donald Hook.
Yeah.
It's a cool one.
Oh,
how about that? I was just trying to read the line in the compressor, and I was like,
yeah,
that's how it goes. So, you know,
it is.
Yeah, it's a last minute.
Yeah.
Show. All right. What y'all think? Tell us. Come on. We want to know something that you think's a good asset. I do. I like the idea. Of course, we went through those spade terminals. That's really cool.
Yep. I think we're through most of it. We've talked about. Yeah, we've talked about the refrigeration. We caught all these slides before they showed up, I think.
Man, and we are right at an hour.
Yeah.
All right.
Look at that.
Well, I guess
there's your summary. We can hit that summary.
Let's do that.
Yeah.
All right. Let's do a summary. Summary. They have an extended life. Jim, tell me about the extended life.
The extended life is absolutely awesome. You are not taking those points and pitting them because you're monitoring them with a little light sensor.
And some additional brownout protection?
Absolutely. We are monitoring the voltage to make sure that we don't drop beneath that 184 mark. And once we're below that, we will kick out to save the motors from wearing out. And that brownout protection, you would have to buy a separate part with a standard contactor.
Absolutely.
So those are extra parts that you no longer have to buy to get all of that protection built into it.
Yeah, I always recommend using some type of a voltage monitor and for inverter equipment. Well, now I can go, how about some voltage monitoring for some voltage protection for your contactor driven equipment as well?
It's all built in. Yep. And those point protection.
Point protection.
Yeah.
Saving life and points.
All righty.
Okay. I think we're there. There it is. There's your sure switch upgrade.
So great product. And I'm the technician. I'm not the salesman. So I look at this and say, hey, there are times that you can use it and there's times that you can't. And if you offer it as an upsell for the homeowner, they can make that decision.
Yeah, let them make the option.
If you're going out to a house that you're doing insect pressure on an annual basis, then you make that decision for them.
Hey, we've done this enough times. I don't want this to look bad on me.
And because after the third or fourth year, the homeowner's like, how's come I'm paying this company every year to come out? So any type of insect pressure, absolutely. Or if you're in an area where there's a lot of rolling brownouts, here's your equipment protection.
Well, we just left Johnstone. We was talking to Aaron about his unit, and it's 12 years old and it's had 5 compressors.
Yeah.
And we're like, well, I mean, there's always internal issues, but what about external issues, right?
Yep.
Like voltage.
Absolutely.
Sweet. Yeah. Oh, tie in for the slide. We made some great points.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
All right. And so I don't know if we have that slide in here. Jim, how can people learn more about White-Rodgers and the Sure Switch?
As far as where things are at,
how to contact. Man, there was a bunch of slides.
We were all the way through them. No, it's just Copeland.com. That's where we want to go now. Is into Copeland, and if you type in Sure Switch, all one word, SURE-SWITCH, and then space Copeland in your Google search, you'll find Copeland, and you can go right directly to that, or you can go into another quick plug here into the White-Rodgers
mobile app. Oh, that's true. You know,
it's always been White-Rodgers. Yeah, we've always called it White-Rodgers, which it's been awesome. Within the White-Rodgers mobile app. And this is live, buddy. We can't do I already flubbed up enough on this one. But if you go in and you actually put our part number in for this, and you will find the part number. I think it's back on that slide that you had in the past, but
I can pull it up.
But I'm going to type it in here, 49M11, and that's enough to type in to this app here right now. And it's going to give you the 49M11 843, which is what we have there. Within the White-Rodgers mobile app, You can find an install video. So if you want to watch how we've installed one, you can find it right here in the app, both in a heat pump as well as in an ice machine. We have 2 different videos in here.
Oh, nice.
And the instructions as well as a spec sheet, all available right here. Well, that's kind of bright. Let's get up there where we can see it. In this WR mobile app, access to all of it right here at your fingertips.
Love it. Good stuff, my friend.
Thank you.
I think that's it, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Man. Today has been way too much fun.
It's been a long day. We got some really high quality video stuff that we're going to be shooting out to you guys, kind of talking about some other new upgrades coming into controls, talking about using some near field communication in furnace control boards. And I love technology.
All kinds of good stuff.
All kinds of good stuff.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you all for joining us. We're grateful to be here with you. We're so glad you spent this hour just hanging out, learning about changes in the industry. And if there's anything that you would like for us to dive deeper into, that's what we do here. We grab the top educators from the industry. We grab new products, new equipment, new refrigerants, regulations, and we dive deeper into them to make sure that you have a better understanding. Not a third partner, fourth, fifth, sixth. You don't hear it from Cousin Joe.
Yeah, you're going to change that screen around because all I can see is "No, you did" on your hand.
No, you did.
Yeah.
I might be able to do that. Yeah. I'll do that on the next show.
If you do it right, then you know you did.
You know you did. Uh-oh, boy, I did it now. Yeah. Let me hop out of that screen. I don't want to do that. All right. Well, I think we'll go ahead and hop out of here. Todd, thanks for joining us. It is a lot of good information. It is just the humble contactor. But when you look at it, it's made its own changes over time, and it's making its own evolution in our industry. And it's important to bring light to it. And we'll do this for every single part that you have questions on here on Did You Know? The ESCO HVAC Show. We'll see you all next week. Bye.